Welcome to the show, guys. Hey there, business owners, directors, and marketeers. In today's show, I'm meeting Kevin Raheja from Typeform. Very excited to have him on the show. I'm Lucas, your host as always, and I want to tell you a little bit about Typeform and Kevin before we jump into the questions. So basically, as you guys might know, Typeform is a conversational data collection platform. So they made forms really exciting and awesome. So that basically they allow customers to create and distribute dynamic mobile optimized forms to collect data for various business cases. And we might jump into that a little bit in a second. Kevin is heading up business development and sales, and he was just hailing over from HubSpot a couple of months ago. So Kevin, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks, Lucas.
Very cool. So can you tell me a little bit about Typeform in your own words? What is it all about?
Sure. Yeah. Typeform, as you said, it's an interactive data collection tool, and we do it in kind of a different way than you see most static forms on your website. We do it with an element of design, and we do it conversationally. So it gently leads the respondent down a path in a conversational way. Typeform was built by designers, so that is a strong value proposition and why many tens of thousands of companies are customers of Typeform.
You mentioned that there's a very broad range of customers. What would the businesses that would typically benefit the most? Is it even possible to nail that down into a couple of businesses, especially since, looking from a sales angle? Or how do you think about a typical company that is well suited to use Typeform?
Yeah, it's better to look at the typical user by market segment. So we do really well with 10 to 200 employee companies. We're starting to see 200 to 500 or 200 to 1,000 employee companies sign up and see success as well. And certainly we have larger enterprise clients also. But the verticals are just so broad. We have a lot of fashion brands. We have a lot of direct-to-consumer brands that use Typeform, but it really varies. There's no dominant vertical. We have customers all across the board using Typeform.
Got you. And you working in the business development and sales sort of organization, what types of companies would you be working with? Is that a certain size sort of when you're stepping in?
Yeah, I think certainly we want to have a focus on annualized contracts on the sales side, especially because we're working with SMBs, which can have lower ACV. So, from a sales approach, I'm looking to kind of focus on annualized contracts or even multi-year contracts. But we have so many users at hundreds of thousands of companies that are on our freemium plan, where there's just an opportunity. And by the way, we don't have an outbound sales team yet, and that's something that we're going to put in place. So the strategy there is to first look at accounts that have users that are using Typeform, and then try to expand those accounts into certainly paying customers, but on also annual contracts as well. So that's the first approach, is to identify users that are not only familiar with Typeform, but also using it, and then expand those contracts into larger accounts.
Makes a lot of sense. So very inbound driven there, what I'm taking from there currently. Could you tell me a little bit about a typical, there's tons of different journeys for you guys, but maybe especially the business accounts that you would be focusing on, what would be a typical journey from them to, identify Typeform, find it, and then maybe getting in contact with you guys? What would be the sort of those touch points be looking like?
Yeah, I think, again, we want to focus on, because we have such, so this is something that we also did really well at HubSpot, was we didn't necessarily have to go out and cold call new businesses, because we had such a wide reach with our freemium offering. So the idea was really to let marketing drive the expansion of the freemium accounts, get people to sign up, try Typeform or HubSpot before they buy it, And then that's when the sales team goes in and identifies ICP, ideal customer profile, amongst the free users, and that they think that they can nurture up into a paid customer.
Very, very interesting. You mentioned you came over from HubSpot. So I'm curious, sort of which type of, and I'm sure in your role, you're looking a lot at processes. I'm curious what type of processes you sort of brought over, or you're thinking about improving, or you're already working on it. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the sales process, once an inbound lead arrives, or is qualified as to be relevant for the sales team.
Sure. I think so what I was managing at HubSpot was mainly the strategic partnerships team. So the integrations, the platform side of HubSpot's business. Mm-hmm. And that's a big focus for us at Typeform as well, is expanding partnerships through integrations. And so, I think, just coming in and really taking the partnership model that I built at HubSpot and applying it to Typeform, that's probably the processes that I'm looking to bring over here. The sales side is new to me. I've never managed a sales team. Yep. So I think I've been doing a lot of interviews with VPs of sales in the industry to just kind of understand, how do you think about compensation modeling? How do you think about team structure and things like that, and applying it to other people who have been successful in that regard. But what I'm doing is applying a partnership structure to our BD team that worked really well for us at HubSpot. And also before that, I was at Groupon and a company called LeadPages. And so taking that applied knowledge and putting it to Typeform, but mainly on the strategic partnerships and BD side.
Makes a lot of sense. Very, very interesting. I'm curious then to know, because given there is an inbound structure and you're heading up sort of a partnership program, what would your collaboration be looking like with marketing? What are the touch points? Maybe you can shed a little bit of light into that, because if sales is heavily dependent on marketing, I think a lot of companies, at least we had in those conversations, sometimes struggle to align them properly, have common metrics, maybe even that they work alongside. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think at first we're going to be heavily reliant on MQLs, marketing qualified leads, that we can nurture on the sales side. Apart from that, we're applying some kind of trendy marketing principles into the sales team, like using ABM. These are things that the marketing team will manage and help enable sales to do, get better quality MQLs. Yeah. But yeah, the way that from a high level that we're dependent on the marketing team is really important when you're looking at the freemium model. Again, marketing attracts the initial free users, and then sales is looking to convert those into higher ACV accounts.
Very good. Are you working with a role in the middle that is sort of connecting marketing and sales? We've seen, product marketeers sometimes sitting between sales, the product, and marketing. Is there any such role in your scenario?
Yeah, we definitely have a product marketing team that's going to be really important for us as we scale out an outbound team. That they will be creating sales enablement tools for us, sales enablement assets. We also are lucky enough to have a data science team at Typeform, and so that is a pivotal department that kind of sits in between customer success, marketing, sales, and gives us insights and better information as to who our customers are, who our users are, so that we can serve them better. And that's something that we didn't have a data science team that was readily available to us at HubSpot. We were a 3,500 person company, so I think that's something unique that we're doing at Typeform. Typeform is just north of 200 employees.
Yep. Very, very interesting. Yeah, you mentioned HubSpot there a little bit, and I think a lot of guys listening would be curious about specifically because HubSpot is sort of famous for their strong partnerships. Could you just tell us a little bit about your role there and sort of what you've been building up in HubSpot?
Yeah, definitely. So HubSpot defines a partner in a few different ways. So they have an agency partner program that is actually responsible for 40% of their revenue. That's a huge, I think about 200-300 people manage that team. So it's massive. It's been around for about 12 years, and it's a huge engine for HubSpot. The partnership team that I was managing was around our platform ecosystem. So that we called that HubSpot Connect, and those are all of the partners who built integrations onto the HubSpot platform to make it more valuable. And we knew that if we could get our customers connected to the tools they're using, we saw higher retention of that user, we saw higher LTV of that user, and it just the number one reason why the sales team would lose a deal, not just at HubSpot but industry wide in SaaS, is typically because the prospect is using a tool that doesn't integrate into that solution, and they just can't work with that company. So the integration strategy was really important for HubSpot to scale up to where they are today.
And when you reflect on this time at HubSpot, is there a couple of things that you want to bring in for sure now in your new role, like a few sort of key learnings that you just know work for partnerships programs on that scale?
Yeah, I think we did a lot of analysis at HubSpot as to the more tools that a customer was able to connect to HubSpot, the retention would go from 80% to over 100% just from going 1 to 4 tools installed into HubSpot. So if you could get a customer to install the software that they're already using for their business into your product, the chances of retaining that customer and the chances of increasing their account size was much greater. So those were things that we were focused on at HubSpot.
Very, very good. One cheeky question: what type of inbound tech stack would you be using then now in Typeform since you moved over?
It's a great question. So we're actually using Iterable at Typeform. We use HubSpot for a CRM in a few of our departments, and on the sales side, we use we're using Salesforce currently. But we just signed up for Iterable, and our marketing team seems pleased with it. So I had no influence over their marketing automation.
Very, very good. Yeah, I would love to switch gears a little bit and learn a little bit about you, sort of as a professional in the field, in the sort of point of inbound marketing, sales. You've been working at these types of companies. Maybe you can just tell me a little bit, when you started, what was your first role where you started building up those partnership programs? Was that in Groupon you mentioned, right?
Yes, in Groupon I was working on partnerships, but I think the most relevant was probably at LeadPages and Drip. LeadPages acquired Drip, so they're under the same parent company, and I worked for them. I was employee 6 of that company. So my role there was to build out their affiliate program. And so, that was my first role in SaaS, working on an affiliate program and building that out.
Very cool. Do you remember the first big partner that you were bringing in back then? And maybe you could share that story a little bit, how you did that?
Yeah. So it took a lot. It was like building the first partnership is a lot like building a product in a way. Like you have to do like a lot of research. You have to do like phone calls with the partner to understand, like as if they were a customer and you're building a product around them. That's how I approached it with our affiliates. Is we didn't have a programmatic program for affiliates. And so I would go out and identify what we thought were ideal affiliate profiles and contact them and just ask them what it would take to be in our program. And we listened a lot. And so I took that feedback and I built a program around it so that they could be successful in it. So our first affiliate partner, was driving about 1.3 million in ARR after the first year of the program launched, and we were all pretty excited about that. But the only reason that was able to happen was because we spent the time and did research and spoke to them and understood what it would take for them to enter the program in the first place, and then we literally built the program around that feedback.
Very cool. Very cool. I would love to know, maybe you as a professional in that field, a specific field of partnership management, and now touching up on sales as well. How do you educate yourself further? Like, what is go-to resources for yourself, trying to be, a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were yesterday?
Yeah, it's a great question. I realized many years ago that my passion was in software, and so I now mentor YC cohorts. I mentor an accelerator here in San Francisco called Acceleprise, and Berkeley Haas has an accelerator that I help out with and advise. And so really that's what I do on my free time. I don't have a lot of hobbies other than working with startups. And when you work with startups that are coming out of these programs, you hear new challenges all the time. These are, young people that are building really cool companies, and you hear different challenges. And so it just keeps me out of my peripheral of HubSpot or Typeform and gets me out and I get to understand new challenges. So I read blogs, Redpoint Ventures has a good blog, A16 has a good blog. I read venture capital blogs, specifically, that have a SaaS focus, but really I just go out and talk to young entrepreneurs. That's my favorite thing to do. And that's, to me, the best way to get a pulse on the SaaS market, is to talk to young people who are building SaaS companies. You'll get a whole different perspective, and it's really eye-opening and wonderful.
Very cool. Very cool. Maybe one last question to slowly wrap up would be, maybe be looking at your HubSpot days. If you would restart the first day you're walking into HubSpot, you are now taking over the parts of the partnership program. What would you tell yourself? What would be a good advice that you would give yourself, that you would carry on forward and maybe today do the same way or different?
Yeah, I think when I started, I really wanted to just make an impact right away. And so I ran really quickly, and I didn't create a process, like a scalable process. And so I think that's something that I'm certainly trying to apply at Typeform is before we go too quickly and make, impactful partnerships that may, not be entirely scalable. Let's first create playbooks around how we want to approach partnerships. And BD has a lot of dependencies internally. So a lot of what you do in business development is really wrangling for support internally. So I'm spending a lot of time doing that. Typeform is just getting to know my team, who does what at my company. And I didn't do that enough at HubSpot. I didn't get to know who I'd be working with internally, who are the stakeholders, building relationships with them, and building a process with them. And so that's something that I'm really focusing on at Typeform.
Awesome. So bringing in a more structured and process-oriented approach. Very, very cool. Last question to wrap up. What would make a good partner for Typeform? Maybe anybody listening, running software companies, what does a great partner consist of?
Yeah, again, we have a great agency reseller program. So we have two types of partners at Typeform, just like at HubSpot. We have an agency profile, and then we have a technology profile, someone that is building an integration with Typeform. And I think if you look at both definitions of partner, the thing that usually is most indicative of a successful partnership is just that they're engaged. So, and this goes both ways. As long as I've worked with partners at HubSpot who, will build an integration and then you won't hear from them anymore. And of course that partnership ends up fizzling out.
Yeah.
And what you are really looking for is just a partner who's engaged and excited and recognizes the opportunity to work together, recognizes the opportunity that originally made you sign up and pursue that partnership. It's the follow through and the engagement. And so our best partners at Typeform are the ones that are most engaged with us, reach out to us, have a good line of communication with us. And so I think that's something that I've noticed across the entire industry too, is that it's the engagement factor.
Very, very cool. So Kevin, I really appreciate that you took the time today, telling us a little bit about Typeform, telling us a little bit about your position, how you sort of historically grown through a couple of SaaS companies, even HubSpot, and now Typeform, into this role of managing those large partnership programs. So thanks a lot for taking the time, and thanks for being a guest on the show today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for making these. This was fun.